Hey everybody, come on in, have a seat or stand, however comfortable you are, and take a moment to just hang out with me. I wanted to bring you a little bit more detail on what the heck is EFT tapping anyway? What is it? How does it work? I do have two little 1-minute videos that give you that in a little snapshot, which is really all you need. But sometimes we like to dive a little deeper into the science and the research. And many people have called it acupuncture without needles, or psychological acupressure, or meridian therapy. But basically, it's a combination of ancient techniques and modern psychotherapy. And so we tap along the endpoints of meridians on our face and upper body while we are expressing exactly what's on our mind, telling the truth of the thoughts and the feelings that we have. As we express those and tap at the same time, we are turning off that fight, flight, freeze, stress response. We are coming out of that busy brain that's been spinning around with that repetitiveness and calming the body. So as it works, as we work with these acupressure points, those end points of meridians, they're energy meridians within our body, they correspond to areas that are rich in nerve endings and pressure receptors. So as we do that, we're coming across the skin and sending a signal directly to the part of the brain called the amygdala. It's a little almond-shaped thing that causes all this response. It's really quite interesting how we can get triggered and it just responds so quickly. I always think about survival of the fittest. Since the dawn of humankind, this is the thing that has survived since then because we need it. We need it desperately. If, again, back in those cave people days, if we needed to run from a tiger, or we needed to fight it to have food, or we needed to hide, that was the response that we needed within us. Because as soon as we get into that stress response, whether it's a fight response, a flee, or even people-pleasing fawn, it is something that we need in the moment. And all of the energy leaves the thinking part of the brain and comes to our extremities so that we can run, we can fight. So in modern days, if we need to run from the fires or the floods, or we need to take cover, we need to protect ourselves or others. And perhaps we actually do need to do some people pleasing to protect ourselves. We learn to do that when we're very young. So there's lots of ways that we might use it. And so in modern day, when we really do have to run to flee a situation, or we need to stand up and fight for ourselves or for others, it is very, very important that we have this. But it's meant to last until we're out of danger. It's usually about 20 minutes. It starts to come down as we get away from it or we handle what's going on. Then it settles back down. But today, and for many years now, especially since COVID and the pandemic, we are experiencing that constant level of stress. It's always running in the background, and it's often quite forefront because of what's going on around us, what's happening in the world, and it's hard to miss any of that. You really have to pull yourself away. So that is always going on in our personal life, our professional life, with our families, our neighbors, our neighborhood, communities, within our regions and our countries, right? It's worldwide. It's always there. And many of you are empaths. You are extremely have that sense of, clairsentience, where you feel everyone, you feel everything, and it's difficult to know, is this mine? Is this somebody else's, right? Okay, so I digress from the tapping. I want you to just know that this is something that we need. We just don't need it all the time. In fact, before 2020, when the surveys were done, in America, they realized that 75% of the population said that they were stressed and had anxiety or something like that. When the pandemic hit, it hit 100 and it's not come down. We have this all the time. Unless you've been learning how to use tapping to keep yourself more grounded and help yourself have that clarity that you need. So understand that that's a bit of what's going on there. But this signal that runs across from the skin to the amygdala happens like that. It's like microseconds to the nervous system. It's just like a relay. So the amygdala is kind of like your brain's smoke detector, and it senses threat very quickly. And that's whether it's real or perceived, because it's sensing something, and often it's something that it learned many years before. And it's not the same, it's just similar. So it will react. That's one of the things I love tapping for, is to just tap in and go, okay, what is this about, right? Because it doesn't make sense sometimes why you're triggered. So, but as that happens and this trigger, it's a cascade of stress hormones now when that trigger happens. So you get that huge amount of response that's preparing you for fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And, that modern stress keeps it stuck in this, turned on mode. It's constantly ringing. Have you ever had a smoke alarm go off in your house, your apartment? It is extremely annoying. Well, that annoyance is happening within us. It's a huge thing to deal with. So the tapping sends a direct calming signal to the amygdala, and it happens very quickly as soon as you start to tap. And you can do just one point like this. As soon as you do that, that signal is sent to that part of your brain, and it breaks the stress loop in real time, cutting off all of that and stopping the spinning thoughts. I like to say it's like flipping a switch in your house, right? Electrical, it's truly that biomechanical electrical system within us, that neurobiology. And of course, if I can, segue to my book for a minute, it's the reason that I chose the analogy of renovating a house to compare it to your inner home and the energy system within you, lining up with our chakras, is that you can correlate the electrical system to it. Now, I had the plumbing and everything else in there, the basement full of boxes and all those things, but it really does, kind of help you see it. But just understand that when you start to point, use the acupoints, and you tap and you say what's on your mind. Like, I'm really frustrated right now. Any of those words, you instantly start to bring that down. It is truly powerful. So you're deactivating that signal directly to the amygdala. It's very, very powerful. So the brain's fear alarm center, I called it a smoke detector a minute ago, but it's a fear alarm. Every emotion that we have that tends to ramp us up, if we keep going with it, we find what we're afraid of. We cannot just tap away the instant anger or frustration or sadness or whatever we're dealing with, and we can get down to what we're really afraid of. But right now, just in the idea of what tapping is and how it works, it's producing this rapid reduction of the fear response to that stressful memory that's there. So just know that that's a huge part of it, that there's several tapping points, as I've demonstrated before, but it's particularly around the face and the collarbone that stimulate branches of the vagus nerve. Now, the vagus nerve and vagal therapy has really become quite prominent right now. A lot of people are teaching about it. When I first heard about it, someone talking about it, or I read about it, I thought, well, that's right along our tapping. That's right along the chakras. Oh my goodness. But it really is. It's that, and that is the gut brain that's coming through. And, we always talk about that gut instinct. That's what that is, and if we tie it in with the tapping and with the chakras, oh my gosh, it's just so powerful. So let's get back to this. It's the idea of understanding that your body has this built-in calm down system, and it activates that parasympathetic nervous system, shifting from fight, flight, freeze, fawn into rest and digest. A lot of people will tell you about that, how that works. So it's this cascade of alarm that has already, been underway that quiets. So the faster you can get to that, the faster you will calm down, the faster you'll be able to make decisions. And, when I was first introduced to it, I felt like my world was falling down around me, and I was a lot of anxiety, and I didn't know what to do. And it was, oh my gosh, it saved my sanity, basically. So let's talk about the cortisol reduction. This is another thing that, that's that stress hormone there. There's been a lot of research done. It's the primary stress hormone, and it gets really ramped up quite quickly. And it's just, nowadays, it's chronically elevated all the time. It's just wreaks havoc on us and on our sleep, our immune system, that immune function, and our weight, how we can manage that. There's so much more, especially around our mood. And as you tap, it drops measurably. I mean dramatically. The research that's been done, and you can check Dawson Church and his EFT universe, because I think he's got a lot of it there. But there has been as much reduction as 43% doing tapping. And I'm not talking over a long time. As soon as you start tapping, you are helping that. And one of the things we learned during COVID, a lot of us started to gain weight around our middle. And that is the body and the nervous system, everybody protecting us. And tapping's the thing that helped the most. And I can tell you this too, this happened. This is really a pretty cool thing. I was in a week-long event. It was basically a 3-day event, live event, with people coming from all over the world, but I was there ahead of time to do some other work, to do some work on the course that I was in. I was doing a couple things by this same person who ran it. And so we were tapping all the time. But within the cocoon of the 3 days, we tapped all day on specific, there were visualizations and things, and we were tapping on all sorts of stuff. It was trying to ignite our energy while letting go of the things that we were fearing, the blocks that we had, all of that sort of stuff. Little did we know, as we began, we heard that COVID had just been announced. And this was in the Boston area, about 30 minutes from the Boston airport, which it was like ground zero at the time when that happened. And people had come from around the world. And we were hugging each other and having this amazing time. Some of the people that I met from like Southeast Asia, India, they'd already had COVID come through. We hadn't heard about it, but it was just, they told us on the sly. We were trying not to talk too much about it because we didn't want everybody in this was a big group. And so anyway, after the fact, we find out that tapping actually does protect you and boost your immune system exponentially. So no one in that huge crowd got sick. No one. Because we were tapping the whole time. We were protecting ourselves and we didn't even know it. Now, I gotta say that I didn't tap the whole time. It was like 2 years later, I actually got exposed to it and came down with it. So I'm thinking, I need to remember what I'm always preaching, practice what I preach, that, we start our day with some tapping and end our day with some tapping, and any time during the day, do a little. You don't have to do it much, but it's amazing to keep yourself so much more clear and grounded. So I wanted to share that part with you. So there's also this prefrontal cortex. When you're in this stress response, that's that thinking part of your brain that goes offline. It literally goes offline. It's like you lost power. And everything's gone to your extremities, as I said before. So it's why when you're stressed, when you're angry, you're overwhelmed, it's almost impossible to make a clear decision, to really access your intuition and get your yes or no, to tune in as we do when I do the daily tap with Tap Into Calm, and we're tuning in to that intuition. So understand that, getting clarity is very different when the alarm system is running. Tapping helps that come back online that quickly. So when you tap, that prefrontal, say that 10 times, prefrontal cortex comes back online. The neural pathways linked to whatever is triggering you starts to dissolve. Now sometimes you might just smell something and you get triggered into things. It's one of your strongest responses. As you tap, it will trigger you away. So, not trigger you away, calm you down. The brain waves slow down from the cyclical, catastrophizing, state of high beta into either low beta or relaxed alpha. So, pardon me as I glance at my notes, because this is part of that technical part I didn't want to forget. So, there's this bandwidth of calm and awareness. And sometimes when you do this, it surprises you, especially if you're a skeptic when you first start using it. Like, what is this about? So calming hormones are released and the noise stops, not because you figured it out, but because the body finally felt safe enough to let go. Yeah, I've seen it work. I just have to say, I am not surprised anymore. I stopped being surprised a long time ago, but I am always amazed and so grateful when I see things happen like this. And working with someone who has intense pain and taking her through tapping exercises, and it's more than basic tapping when we do that. When I'm coaching someone through it, and I use a lot of mind-body tapping and that kind of thing. So, but to see someone go from over the top 10 all the way down. And we go in progressions, but often that first jump is like down to a 6 and then to a 4, and we keep going. So know that it really does work on whatever is bothering you. It's not that it's going away forever, but the more you do it, the more it comes down, the faster tapping works for you when you do that. And what I found with physical pain is that the emotions get triggered. They get ramped up. So I always call it emotional and physical pain. And sometimes we're just in a lot of, no, never just, but we're in a lot of emotional pain. And that will definitely calm down, and we can have a clearer picture of what's really going on when the mind stops spinning and catastrophizing. So the catastrophizing comes with intense pain. It's just part of it. So remember that you can do both. And so there's also this thing, let me glance at my notes again, memory reconsolidation. So every time a memory or a belief gets activated or triggered, remember, it's real or imagined, there is this brief window where the memory becomes malleable. So you can literally rewire it. It can be updated. And, when you hold a thought about a stressful memory while you're tapping, you're sending this nervous system a complete kind of competing signal. It's like, this is present, this issue, but I am also safe, because the body is feeling safe as you tap. So I've got this in my head, but I'm beginning to calm down. It's really kind of crazy how that works. So, I have this, but I am also safe. And I have grounding exercises when I see someone's really, really ramped up. And, we just go through the grounding with the tapping until we're able to address whatever the issue is. So the brain receives, both pieces of this information, the issue and the safety. And it's like simultaneous, but the memory reconsolidates with the emotional charge, and it's rewritten. So often we can literally let go of something that's been there a long, long time, and we can then go back and observe. We can do that, and we go, yeah, I remember that. And we can look around and we can say, well, at the time, I can see where my consciousness level was, and I can see what was happening around me and the people and the circumstances, right? That's a whole big exercise I do with people as well. But let's see. So tapping as soon as something triggers you, as soon as you feel something, even discreetly, because, I also teach you that, the stealth tapping, where you can do fingertip tapping beside while you're even walking, or, there's different ways that you can do that. So like even now below the screen, I can be tapping like this. So you can do the same thing. If you have to be in a meeting, maybe you have to go to a bank or talk to somebody, you can do that below the desk. Or when I was talking to doctors and nurses in the ICU and all these other places in the hospital, when my late husband was there, I could just rest my hands, I sit on the edge of the chair this way, rest my hands between my thighs or knees, and be tapping, which meant I could stay clear, listening to what they had to say, but also keeping myself from getting upset and getting too, frustrated or too flummoxed over what was going on. So that's one of the big ones. And then understanding that, this stress that's been triggered can now feel safe, can now, there's this huge change that happens. And it's not just psychological, it's structural. And, there are people now that are talking about neuroplasticity. Dr. Joe Dispenza, being superhuman. This is a thing that you can use in conjunction with the things that he teaches and that others teach That's a big thing for me. I add tapping to all sorts of practices. In fact, again, in my book, I show you how you can do that. There's a playbook at the back, and there's different exercises that are tapping, but there's also others that we add tapping to. So it's really powerful. And it's this neuroplasticity research, it confirms that repeated experiences that create lasting changes in the brain structure and function. It's a calmer baseline. With that amygdala seems less reactivity. This new, these new stressors don't ramp up as high. And that's what I always aim for with people is, if we're walking around up here, and many of us are, when we start to check in with our body, which is another big thing, checking in with that, but we start to see that we're walking around at a 7 or an 8 all the time. So if we can bring that down and walk around maybe lower, then when something triggers us, we recognize it faster, we start tapping, and it calms down so much faster. It's really that powerful. So, the amygdala means less reactivity, less triggering. And, and it's not just the ones you've already tapped on. New stuff can come up and it won't trigger you as much. It's so I do also want to touch base on another thing, but I think I'll do a second video about that. And it's called Why EFT Works Where Other Approaches Stall. So I'm going to pause it right now, stop it right here, and I'll do another video on that so we don't stretch out too long. And, do me a favor, hit that like and do a comment. Tell me how this resonates. Tell me how tapping works for you. If you've ever tried it, if you're skeptical, what happens for you? And I'll be back.